What's your worst story from the throw him in the pool, he'll learn how to swim parenting style? My stepmom walked us, me, sister, brother 10 to 12, deep into the woods and left us there to learn survival skills. We thought we were all out on a hike, then she distracted us and ran away. We wandered into camp hours later. We knew how to get back but searched for hours worried that something had happened to her. She was drinking margaritas and smirking. Edit. Thank you all for the smiles and awards. I freaking love the wilds of R. 2 days after I graduated high school, I came home to an empty house. All my stuff in a U-Haul because my mom and stepdad moved without me. I have been financially independent ever since. But a heads up would have been nice. My younger cousin, 4 at the time, was a climber and always needed help getting down. His dad told his mom to leave him. He'll either learn how to get down himself or stop climbing. Cousin ended up climbing onto the roof, fell off and got impaled on a fence pole. One very expensive trip to the and he now has a cool scar on his thigh. I was volunteering at a parent-child zoo day and saw a few parents like this. The zoo had some free roaming peacocks. And it was awful how many parents just didn't tell their too young to know kids that they can be mean. So the little toddler goes, "Wow, pretty bird," and tries to get a closer look, only to get chased and attacked by this thing while the parents watch. Most of them said something like, "You should have known better." Like, how if you never teach them? The child can barely walk. You expect them to remember that some animals have a strong territorial sense? And then your baby gets terrorized by this thing that's bigger than them and looks like an alien. For all they know. And you don't even give them a hug? See also, that one mom we had to kick out of the zoo because she was encouraging her kids to antagonize the llama in the hopes it would spit on them. Yikes. People, have some empathy for tiny humans who trust you implicitly with their well-being. Every time I asked my parents to explain something as a kid, I was told either, "You're smart," "You'll figure it out," or, "You just don't want to do it." Any attempt at maturity was met with either flat-out laughter or being told that I was too young to worry about that. Cue me turning 18. And suddenly I'm expected to be an adult, get a job, pay taxes, and all that jazz. I asked where in the hell do I start? And they got pissy because I apparently hadn't figured anything out. Huh. Wonder why? My mom's whole parenting style was sink or swim, but funny enough, it's when my mom tossed me in the pool. The summer between first and second grade, my family moved somewhere with a pool. My mom was adamant that I had learned to swim as a baby. So she bought floaties for my younger sister and refused to buy any for me because I already knew how to swim and was too big for floaties. When I refused to get into any part of the pool I couldn't walk in, my mom called me from outside the pool and promptly grabbed me and tossed me into the 6-foot end. And surprise, I didn't know how to swim. I remember splashing twice, hearing my mom yell at me to stop panicking. Then I went under and tried swimming to the surface like I'd seen in movies and eventually got my head a bit above water, coughed out a bunch of water and started screaming for help before I went under again. My mom told me to stop making a scene and swim towards the edge. I made it to the edge and couldn't pull myself out of the pool, so my mom yelled at me to swim to the shallow end. When I tried to grab onto the edge to just pull myself to the shallow ends, my mom kept taking my fingers off the edge and yelling for me to stop playing and just swim. When I finally got to the shallow part, my mom and family just went, "See? You still remember how to swim. You never forget." Bartenders of Reddit. What was the weirdest, craziest thing you have overheard while making someone's drink? Bartending at a strip club. I'd have guys ask me to get them girls every other night. Like, here's $200. Which one of these dancers will fuck me? None. None. Dude. And #X200B. And #X200B. Allison totally would. But I'm not telling anyone. The first restaurant per bar I worked in, I was only serving, but I frequently was in the section right next to the bar. One day I was busy serving a large group, but the restaurant was mostly empty, and a guy behind me at the bar said, "You wanna pet my parrot?" My initial reaction was the same as if a stranger had just come up behind me and touched my shoulders, but when I turned around, it really was a guy with a parrot on his shoulder. The parrot's name was Bobby, and yes, both me and the bartender pet him tears of joy. I was a bartender for about 2 weeks, filling in for a relative who owned a bar and went on his honeymoon. I heard a guy talking to a woman about murdering her husband. I called the cops, but these patrons were gone before they showed up. This was before cameras, so I just gave my story and that was it. Not long after, my uncle calls me saying the cops are looking for me. They interview me about the couple. Apparently, the guy was a hitman for hire and the woman was trying to get some insurance money. She got busted. It was actually an episode of Forensic Files, back when that was on TV. I remember watching the episode and they said something like, the couple was overheard discussing the murder in a bar. I was kind of upset that they didn't mention me. Lol. I was hoping for the awesome bartender overheard them, but couldn't really tell us much. He also pointed at the male in the photo lineup and asked, "Is this him?" As if he was unsure. What a fucking dope. From a woman to her friend, I don't know about you, but I just can't poop in a pink bathroom. A married couple in their 50s arguing how they were going to explain the fact they couldn't pay the remainder of the €3 million bill for a Ferris wheel they'd ordered 18 months ago. Already put $1 million deposit on. And whose collection was due at 8 a.m. the following morning. I once had to ask a woman to remove her infant from the bar top. She put them on the floor. I really don't miss bartending. What is something that should not be popular but is? Child pageant shows. Harassing someone for views or popularity. It makes me angry that people think this is the best way to get popular. YouTube pranks, TikTok challenges. Trying to be funny in public but involving people who want nothing to do with them. Like filming themselves just weirding out other people or like destroying property. You're not funny. You're a dick. Children's high-end sneakers. There's no reason to buy your 3-year-old toddler a pair of mini-sized Jordans that they won't fit in 3 months from now. Most posts in our unpopular opinion. What's the coolest thing you own that isn't expensive? When my great-grandfather died about 30 years ago, the only thing he willed to anyone in particular was his watch, which he gave to me, his oldest great-grandchild. It's not a fancy watch, just a working man's Bulova wind-up, but it was gifted to him by his notoriously stingy father-in-law in the early 70s. It still keeps perfect time. I work at NASA and managed to get it flown on a space shuttle mission. TLDR. A 50-year-old watch given to my great-grandfather by my great-great-grandfather. The watch has been to space. When I visited the Dead Sea, I found a string that had been tied into a loop that had a lot of salt stuck to it. So it looks like a necklace made of salt. It might not sound like much, but I thought it was a pretty unique souvenir. A képi blanc. The classic white hat of the French Foreign Legion. Given to me by a person in the process of deserting. I was on a train when this giant guy tells me that he just deserted from the Legion. He said, "Don't believe me? Here's my uniform," and opened up his duffel bag. I said, "Cool. How much for the hat?" To which he replied, "I don't need it anymore. Here," and handed it over. It's my favorite hat from my collection. A needle nose pliers. Those damn things are surprisingly handy. A poem book that I got recently. It's called Años Maduros, and it was part of a competition for poets that never got the chance. My dad passed from cancer when I was 6 and he died before knowing if he won. He did. And his poem was dedicated to me. A very early edition of Fahrenheit 451. The edges look burned. Bought it at a library book sale for $1.
Subscribe, my brothers.